Hello everyone. Today with my group conformed by Fernanda Riquelme, Felipe Moreno, and who is speaking, Martina Inostroza, we will introduce you our case analysis about Mr. Zapata's pedagogical decisions. Okay, to begin with, let's see some of the topics that you will find during the entire presentation. In first place, we will give you a short contextualization about our case analysis. Then we will go deeper to talk about students' profile. After that, we will explain Mr. Zapata's role in the establishment. And finally, we will give you a final reflection with the previous knowledge that we have learned during these 4 semesters of this English major. And after that, we will give some short recommendations that we think and we consider could be useful in the future as future English teachers. Okay, so let's get started with the short contextualization. Well, the present case explores an English teaching situation which takes place in a municipal school in the Biobío region. Here, students who come from socially and culturally vulnerable contexts have seen their learning processes and wishes limited by their living conditions. Even though a great number of students wish to finish secondary school and then start working, very few have in consideration to continue studying. For this reason, the school has implemented some action plans to promote the importance of completing 4th grade to possibly pursue technical education in the near future. However, it is important to highlight that the school has only one English teacher, and each class is made up of 43 students. Mr. Zapata, who is in charge of all levels of education, has been working there for 18 years. Nonetheless, he doesn't have high expectations of his students because he says that most of them are not motivated and that they have some learning problems and behavioral issues as well. For all these reasons, his educational practice has shaped his pedagogical decisions. As a result, he limits himself to teaching simple grammar with isolated sentences on different topics, which are often translated with the help of Google Translator. Mr. Zapata explains that he does not develop other skills because students don't like to write and cannot understand what they hear.
Now I'm going to present the student profile of Mr. Zapata's class. Well, in this case, students come from socially and economically vulnerable backgrounds where family must focus on covering basic needs. Because of this, education is not usually seen as a long-term investment. Many students plan to finish secondary school and start working right away. Since higher education is viewed as financially difficult or unnecessary for their immediate situation. These socioeconomic conditions create structural barriers that affect their academic performance, their motivation, and their expectations for the future. According to Mr. Zapata, many students struggle to communicate in Spanish, this affecting their learning of English, since weak reading comprehension, limited vocabulary, and difficulty of expressing their own ideas in their native language makes it even more challenging to do it in a foreign one, like English. These struggles contributes toward a lack of motivation as students often perceive English as too difficult. In addition, Families with low educational levels are often unable to provide academic support at home, help students build effective learning habits, or model the value of continuing education. This lack of support reinforces students' low expectations and helps explain why many prefer to work instead of pursuing further studies.
Well, Mr. Zapata's role in this case plays is a central role because he's the only English teacher in the school. Because there's no other English teacher, the students can only experience his method, his beliefs, and his expectations. So the students are strongly connected with this teacher. Mr. Zapata also shows a very low level of expectation about his students. He said that his students are not motivated and they never going to learn English. As we saw, this mindset affects his teaching abilities because he does not believe that his students can succeed and the students can witness that. So probably this affects their motivation and interest to learn English. If he has low expectations, the students will not receive any different messages or feedback from another teacher. This increased Mr. Zapata's influence on students' motivation and learning. Mr. Zapata also used a traditional methodology. He does not work essential skills for an English learner, that is, listening, speaking, and writing. He immediately translates what he said in class instead of letting the students think and blocking blocking their comprehension skills and making the class less interesting for the students. Mr. Sabata includes listening, writing, and speaking tasks in the last test. But since the lessons do not practice these skills, the students will fail the exam, and they probably think that they will never learn English and loses their motivation. For closing, I quote, "The teacher role in facilitating students' motivation is perceived through their support for developing students' autonomy, relevance, competence, teacher interest, and teacher self-efficacy about teaching their subject. We believe that the teacher role of motivating students are essential because in cases like this, the teacher has a high influence on his students' motivation and learning."
To conclude, after 4 semesters in this English major and considering everything we have learned as future English teachers, we first believe and recommend Mr. Zapata is that during the entire semester, formative evaluation must be applied because it reinforces the whole subjects and helps the students to be aware of their main difficulties. As Ismail et al. 2022 says that using formative assessments gives the students evidence of their present progress to actively monitor and modify their own learning. We also strongly believe that Mr. Zapata shouldn't be the only teacher in the entire school. The establishment must hire more teachers. Moreover, encouraging students to succeed despite their circumstances will mark the difference in their behavior and attitude. Mr. Zapata could motivate their students by designing activities around topics that the students might find attractive, like technology or music. Finally, all the instruments have to consider the appropriate levels for each course based on the national curriculum, without the inappropriate misuse of cutting some skills such as reading, writing, speaking and listening. If the students are lacking in a certain skill, the teacher must focus on improving that skill instead of leaving it aside.
Thank you all for watching this video about the case of Mr. Zapata, an English teacher of a school from the Biobío region of Chile. I hope you find this interesting, and educational.